Okay, so good evening, guys. So today we're going to be talking about live data. Okay, so previously we talked about view models, and then we're able to, build this application where we can scramble words and then, you know, put the right words and check if the right word is actually correct and the likes. So that's basically what we were able to work on in the previous classes that we've had. So yeah, the player of the game tries to guess the correct word. So the application data, such as the current word, the player score, and the word count. Okay, we are actually saving that in our view model. Okay, so those they are actually being saved in the view model, the current word. Okay, we have the current word saved in the view model. We have the word count. We have the score. Okay, so those are being saved in the view model. But you notice that when we actually play the game, okay, when we actually play it, the words so like this, from I think the right word should be all. So when I submit it, okay, it's actually correct. But we notice that the UI does not reflect the score, neither does it reflect the word count values. Okay, so we're going to implement this now using live data. We're going to implement it using what we call live data. So what is live data? Live data is an observable data holder class. Okay, live data is an observable data holder class that is life cycle aware. So first of all, observable means it can observe, it can look out for changes. Okay, data holder class, so that means it holds a class that holds data, and that data holder class is observable. You can observe it, you can look out for that class for changes. And another thing is that it is life cycle aware. That means it's aware of the life cycle of that's what UI controller, be it the fragments or be it an activity or whatever. It is life cycle aware. So it is aware of the on create, the on pause, on stop, on destroy, and the like. So live data is an observable data holder class, okay, that is life cycle what aware. And the characteristics of live data is that number one, it holds data. Okay, it holds data. It's a wrapper that can be used with any type of data. Okay, a wrapper, WRAPPR. Okay, that can be used with any type of what data. Now, the second characteristics is that it is observable. Okay, and that means that an observer is notified when the data that is held by the live data object changes. So when there's a change in the data, okay, it is what there's an observer is what notified. Then we also said it is life cycle what aware. That's the third characteristics of the live data. It is life cycle what aware. Now, when you attach an observer to the live data, the observer is associated with a life cycle owner. Okay, we'll get to use these things. Okay, it's observed with a life cycle owner. Okay, and usually it's either an activity or a fragment. Okay, the life cycle owner is usually an activity or a fragment. Okay, so the live data only updates observers that are in an active life cycle state, such as started or resumed. Okay, so don't worry, you can actually read more about it, but we're going to just do more of implementation. Okay, not theory, we'll kind of do more practical. So let's, from what we have here already, okay, we're going to be implementing live data on this application already. So we already have a function called updates next word. Let's see, let me see if I can get that. Okay, that's, so let me just close out some of these things that we're not making use of here. Okay, so we have a function here, update next word on screen. Okay, so if you don't, this particular function here is actually called explicitly. So if I do a control V on this, so you get to see where it's actually being called. So it's called explicitly. That means every time you want to display a new scrambled word, you call it. Whenever you want to display a new scrambled word in your UI, we call it. Okay, so that's what I mean by explicitly. So we actually call this method during the game initialization, okay, in our view created. So during the game initialization, we call this method. And also when the players press, let's say they submit, okay, when they submit a word or when they actually skip a word. Okay, so these are the three places where we are where we call the update next word on word screen. So the method is called in our on view created, it's called in our on submit, on skip word, on submit word, and is there any other place? Okay, submit word, on skip word. Okay, we're also calling it on in the on restart, the restart game function also. Okay, we're calling it the restart game function. So with LiveData, we don't have to call this method from multiple places to update the UI with LiveData, because there is a change, okay, that causes us to actually call this function. There's a change. So with LiveData, we observe this change. All we have to do is what? Observe it and then update. But without LiveData, you can see we are calling the same function 4 times. We are calling the same function 4 times in our UI, in our fragments. Okay, so but with LiveData, you don't have to actually do this. Okay, we'll just do it once in the observer. We just do it once. So how do we get to implement that? Okay, so let's add LiveData to the current scrambled word. Okay, because that's, of course, that's what we actually that's what we need to observe. So let's do that. So we're going to learn how to wrap any data with LiveData now. Okay, so we'll do this now by converting the current word in our view model to LiveData. Okay, this is our current word. We'll convert it to LiveData. Now, but before we move, there's what we call mutable LiveData. Okay, so from the word mutable string, mutable list, you know about that. So mutable LiveData is the mutable version of the LiveData, meaning that the value of the data stored within it can be changed. Okay, that's mutable LiveData. So I'm going to start with this. So here, so let me change the type of this, the current scrambled word variable here. Okay, so I'm going to change this to okay, so let's do this. Let's do this. Let me just take out. So I'm going to take out this guy. Okay. And I'm going to make this a val. So this is not going to be of type string again. So this is going to be of type mutable LiveData. And the data type of this is going to be what? String. And then I'll put this. So okay, so this is it. So I just changed the type of variable of this current scrambled word to a mutable LiveData that holds a string. Okay, so mutable LiveData, they are actually generic classes. So you don't need to actually specify the type of data they hold. Okay, don't really need to specify. Okay, but so in this case, we're actually just doing that now. So the next time I'm going to change the variable type of which I've actually done, to val. Now you notice it was a late init var before, so but I changed it to a val, and the reason is because the value of LiveData or either a LiveData or a mutable LiveData object will remain the same. The value of the object will remain the same, okay, and only the data stored within the object will change. Okay, the value of the LiveData object will remain the same. Only the data that is stored within the object will change. So that's why we have I changed that from a var rather to a val. Now the next thing, let's change the backing property. Okay, because this is not we're not using of type string now. Okay, it has to be the same thing. So but now the backing field property will now be changed to LiveData and not mutable LiveData. And the reason is because LiveData, of course, it is immutable. Okay, so let me just do this. So change this to LiveData, and the LiveData should be of string. Okay, so this is actually how it should be. This is how you actually add LiveData. Okay, so first of all, we have our private variable here. So this is with respect to the class. Okay, with respect to this class. Okay, it can only be changed here. Okay, a val, but since we're using a val, so the object here, this object is not going to change, but the contents, the data stored in this object, that's what is going to change. So by our backing property, okay, so of course this particular property is what we're going to expose to other classes to actually make use of. Okay, but we're changing the property to LiveData because it is immutable. You can't actually change it. Okay, so just take note of that. Okay, so so to access data within a LiveData object, we use the value. There's a value property. We use the value property. Value is actually a property. That's what we use to access the data within a the data within a LiveData object. Okay, so let's go to so in our get next word function. Okay, so we need to access the data, okay, in our LiveData objects. Now you can actually see we have an error here. Okay, now if I hover on this, you can see, well, val cannot be reassigned, change to var. Okay, but let's leave that first. Now you can see here type mismatch. So it required a mutable LiveData of type string, but yet what it's actually seeing is a string. So we're going to fix that. Okay, so so what we'll now do is to say current. So we said, how do we access the data within a LiveData object? So we use the value property. So I'm going to say current scrambled word, which is a immutable LiveData. So I'm going to say dot value, and that solves that. Okay, that just solves the word error. So that's what we use to access data within a LiveData object. Okay, so that's one. So we have basically just set up the LiveData on our current scrambled word. Now let's learn how to attach observer to the LiveData object so you can observe for changes. Okay, so let's set up an observer in our game fragment. So the observer that we are going to that we'll add is going to observe changes to the application's data's current scrambled word. Okay, so to observe the changes to the current scrambled word, because of course that's where we have attached our LiveData. Okay, that's where we have attached our LiveData to the current scrambled word. So it's going to observe the changes to the data, to that particular data. Now we said that LiveData is life cycle aware. So meaning it only updates observers that are in an active life cycle state. So your observer in our game fragment will only be notified when the game fragment is either in the started state or resumed state, because those are two active life cycle states. So I'm going to delete this method, the updates next word on screen. I'm going to delete this method. And any other place that is being called, I'll just take it out. Okay, so let's take that out. So of course we don't need it actually, since we're going to be attaching an observer to the LiveData, so we don't need it. So in my onSubmit word, okay, here, so let's do some modification. Let's do some modification. So So here we have the player word, and then we're getting the. So if the view model, okay, view model dot, if the word is correct, I mean the word that the user actually type, if it is correct, then it sets the error text field to be false. Now, if the view model dot next word, okay, we are going to show a dialog, else we are setting the error text field. Okay, so let's see. So let's attach an observer now. Let's attach an observer. So let's do this. So we're going to do that here. So because of course we said it's life cycle aware. So where is our own view created? Let's see. Okay. Okay, good. So so in our on view created, I'm just going to say view model dot current scrambled word, okay, dot observe. So we want to observe changes, okay. We want to observe changes. Now this takes two parameters now, okay. This takes two parameters. The first parameter you can see is lifecycle owner. Who is the owner of this lifecycle? And then an observer is the second parameter. So the owner of this lifecycle, remember we said the lifecycle owner is either the UI, is the fragment or the activity. So here I'm just going to say passing, there's already a a code here that I can actually use, a method view lifecycle owner. So I can just pass that. So that's already provided for me. So this view lifecycle owner, it represents the fragments view lifecycle. Okay, and what this actually does is that it helps the LiveData to be aware of the game fragment lifecycle. Okay, that the view lifecycle owner, this view, the game fragment. Okay, so it helps the LiveData to be aware of the game fragment lifecycle and then notify the observer when the game fragment is in active state. That's what that does. And the active states are started or resumed. Then the next is a lambda expression that we're going to pass now. Okay, so it's just a lambda. Okay, so we're going to add that. So let me add it with a function called, so since it's a lambda, I have to do this now, right? Okay, so instead of it here, you can see I want to use the word, I want to say new word. Okay, instead of using it, okay, then I can actually just use it, but instead of that, I can now decide to create my own parameter name, okay, to actually make use of. So this new word now, it will contain the new scrambled word value. That's what it will contain, okay, to contain the new scrambled word value. So of course we talked about lambdas. Okay, so a lambda expression is an anonymous function that isn't declared, but is passed immediately as an expression in this case. Okay, it is an anonymous function that isn't declared, but is passed immediately as an expression. And of course, it's always surrounded by your curly brace. So in the function, inside this our lambda expression now, okay, so we are going to assign new word to the scramble word text view. Okay, so I'm going to say binding dots. So we have the text view on scrambled word dot text, and then I'm going to say call the words new word. Remember, they said the new word holds the value of the current scrambled word. Okay, it contains the value, the new current scrambled word value. Okay, that's what it contains. So this is the text we are updating. Okay, this guy. Okay, so that's how we actually use the observer. So let's now attach observer to score and then word count. Okay, so let's do that. So in doing it again, we get to understand it. So for mutable, so here, so I'm going to change this to a val, private val, okay, and then So I'll say mutable live data, and then I'm going to give it the default value of 0, okay? Because that was the 0 is the initial value. So we're giving it a default value of 0. And then this is going to be a live data of type int. Okay, so we have actually activated live data on the score. The next one is for the current word count. So same thing here. Okay, same thing here. So, well, we are not using a back. So let's use a backing property for this. Okay. Okay, so get the current word count. Okay. Do we need to? No. So, sorry, let's leave that. I think current. Okay, so let's move. So, in our game view model now, yeah, so we already have an error, but we'll fix that. We'll fix that. So where we have our reinitialize data, okay? So at the beginning of this method, okay, so let's change the score. Let's change these guys now. The score, the current word count, okay? Let's change it. So remember, we said when you want to access it, use the value property. So dot value. Okay, so cannot assign this setter. Okay, so I think I need to confirm something. Current word count, live data dot value. Okay, so we have an error here. Cannot assign the value. So let's see. Okay. Current word count. Okay. So okay. So val current word count, mutable live data 0. Live data int. Get the current word count. Okay, so I think we were using something before. So let me just do, maybe there's been some that's kind of registered a few things. So I need to change that quickly. And okay, we're not supposed to, so sorry. Yeah. So that's the one we changed the value, because you cannot use the live data. You can't update the live data. So I think that we're using the wrong thing. So yeah, that's fine. That's fine. So the next thing is in our next word function. Okay, so you can see, of course, we can't actually compare these live data. So you can't actually compare, you can't really do this. So we need the actual value. So this is what we're not going to make use of. So immutable live data, the current word count dot value. Okay, so yeah, so this is to check this for null check. Okay, that's for null check. So if I change that out, you can see. So operator call corresponds with this. So we have to add that for check. And then so where else? So we have another method. So in the increase score, so this is just to add dot value. Okay. And then so we're gonna do something here now. Okay, we're gonna just do let's do some few changes here. So here we basically want to increase the score, but you can actually do this. This just solves it. Okay, that's more like the null check for you. But what we are basically using here is the plus function to increase the score. And the reason we are using this function is that it will actually perform this addition operation with null safety. Okay, to actually do that with null safety. So if I undo it, Okay, you can actually see, so operator call requires that, you can see use the dot value. It kind of gives you a hint here. Dot value dot plus assign and then score increase. And this is not allowed on a nullable receiver. So it's possible, this is possible for this guy to get null. So for safety reasons, okay, we replace with the safe call. So what we're saying is that we are getting this score dot value. Okay, if it is null, okay, don't do anything. But if it is null, you won't do anything. But if there is a value, then increase that value. So that's the concept of the null safety there. Okay. So let's move on now. Of course, another way we can increase something is by using the inc function, inc function, that's increment. Okay, you can use it to increment the value of the inc function. So let's do that. Let's use that in the get next word. Okay, so here we have the current scramble word of value is this, and of course the current word count. Okay, so this becomes our current word count dot value. Okay, so for null safety purposes, so I'm going to say current word count dot value. So if this is true, if this is null, so if this is null, it won't return anything. But if it is, increase it. Okay, so this will increase the value. Okay, if it is null, it won't do anything. But if it is non-null, okay, it will increase the value. That is this inc function here for increment. Okay, so that's, I think we're fixed basically the errors here. So one more thing, let's go to game fragment. Okay, so because we need to assess the value of the score using the value property. So here in our show, where's our show dialog? Okay, good. In our show dialog, so you see we have an error here. We can't just assess this guy. Okay, you need these values, you use the value property. So dot value. Okay, so that gets the value. Okay, that's just that. That's the only thing we are changing here. So the next thing we'll do now is to attach observers on the score and the word count. Okay, so let's now attach, just like we did for the other one. So let's attach observers for that. So I'm going to delete okay, so this, so you see these two actually updates the score, and then okay, so let's do this. So I'm going to remove these two because this is what is updating the score and the word count. So here I'm now going to say view model dot score, sorry, view model dot score, okay, dot observe. We want to observe the score. So we need to pass in the view lifecycle owner and a lambda. So I'm going to call, instead of using it, I'm going to say new score. Okay. So so observe those changes, and then if there's a change, we'll now update the text property. So binding does this, so I'll now do my get string. So which is what we had before, but now we are calling it differently. So r.string, sorry. And then we have the new score. So passing the new score, okay? So same thing here we'll do the same thing for the word count. So so I'm just going to, so current word count. So I'll change this to, let's call this new word count, consistency. Okay, new word count. So the binding dot, I think we have our text is word count. That's our text view. So get string. Okay, we have a string called word count. So here we'll pass in the new word count, and then we can now pass in the maximum number of words. Okay. So because if you check here, we can actually, yeah, so we have this template already. So we can add you know, two variables. Okay. We have two placeholders there. Okay, so that's actually that. What else? So these new observers now, okay, so they'll be triggered when the value of score and word counts changes inside the view model during the lifetime of, the lifecycle owner. That's the lifecycle owner now is the game fragment. Okay, so so before we run the application, let me just see if I have any errors anywhere. Not seeing any, though here it's showing red, but let's just run that and then see if it gets updated. Okay, so while that is building, okay, so the next thing we're now going to do is to use LiveData with data binding. Okay, yeah, I know we haven't talked about data binding. We've actually been using view binding. Okay, but of course you're going to use data binding in your project. So your final project. So let's talk about it, and then see how we can actually use it. Okay, so from what we have been doing, our application actually listens to data changes in the code. Okay, so let me see if we have let's see if we have a, okay, so I think we have an error. So attempted to do this on a null object reference. So get next word. So let's see. Okay, so I'm going to check where this current scramble word is actually called. So I'm going to do Control V here. Okay, so we have it here. Okay. Okay, so yeah, this is the problem. Okay, so we are calling the get next method here before we even initialize this. Okay, so your code actually runs top to bottom, left to right. Okay, so that's why we're actually having this null pointer. Okay, so you solve that by just taking this out, and then so you can place it just after the get next word function, or you could just place it here. So that should actually solve that problem. So let's run that and then see what that does. Okay, so yeah, so that solves that problem. Okay, that solves the problem. So we could test this out. Well, let's not take a lot of time. So this is book. Would I be correct? Seems like it just got handed over to me. Oh, that's fine. Okay, and then submit. So what? Well, let's assume we don't know this. This looks like pizza. Okay, so you can see the score updates. This is year, right? The word count also updates. This is run. This is volume. Seems like I'm having a good time. Okay, so okay, let's skip this one. So we have already scored 100, so at least that's fine. Okay, and then skip the last one, and then so congratulations, you scored 100. That's a very good score. So you can decide to play a game or exit the application. This is guitar. Let me just play that. Oh, nice. Okay, so of course you could exit, and then it exits the game for you. So okay, so that's actually that. Okay, so in our next class, we're going to talk about data binding. Okay, so stay tuned. Okay, but till then, let's have a wonderful day. Thank you.